So the last thing we want to do in our app is add the image data to each one of our views. So let's take a look at where we might find that. So here's our Apple RSS feed. Let's go to top 10 songs. And again, we'll change that to JSON limit 1. Okay, so there's our top song data. Remember that we've already pasted it into our validator. Whoops. Let's see if we can find anything about an image in here. Let's go to entry. Here we go, there's an IM image. And you can see that this is a bracket instead of a brace, which means that the images are in an array. So if I hit the plus, I'll see that there are 1, 2, 3 images. Each one is a different height. There's 170 pixels, 60 pixels, and 55 pixels. And there's a URL associated with that. I'm going to go ahead and copy that URL and paste it here. And see that I get an image of that album. So if I could find some way to use an NSURL connection to get that, I could retrieve that image. And that's exactly what we're going to do. And again, it's important to remember that this is an array of images. Okay, so this path, feed, entry, IM image, is a path to the images. Okay, and it's an array of images. Let's go ahead and go back to Xcode and let's add that functionality in. So I'm going to go back to the artist, okay, and I'm going to add another line in here. So let's go ahead and do image URLs equals feed.value for key path. Okay, and again, that's the key path that we found before, so it was feed.entry.im::image as, and it's an array, okay, that's why I use the bracket, of type NS dictionary, because I'm still having key value pairs. Oops, I forgot to, let me close this. Let me put that here. Let me get rid of that for a second. Oops. Put that back in. Okay. And once I do that, I'm going to say if let image URL equal image URL s dot last. And I'm using last because I want the biggest picture, and last would be the last value in that array. I could subscript it like 0, 1, but I don't know, I may not know if the array size changes. I may not, my subscripts might be off. So if I do dot last, I know that I'm going to get a value back. Okay? So I'm going to do some optional binding. Image URL string equals image URL value for key path. Right? Because I have to do this again because I'm returning an array of dictionary, of type NS dictionary. So I'm getting the key path, and it's just label this time. Because if I go back to my JSON validator, this is the last entry, but the key is label, and here's the value for that. As string. Okay, and when I do that, I'm going to do self.load image from URL. This is actually going to be a method I'm going to write in a second. And I'm going to pass it NSURL string image URL string. Okay. So I've let me go ahead and add a comma here. That should take care of some of these errors. And notice that it doesn't have this self. I think I have one too many brackets here. And now the only thing left is it's probably going to say I don't have a load image from URL method. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. So do function load image from URL. It's going to take one parameter, a URL of type NSURL. I'm not going to return anything. Remember, when I make a connection, I need a request. So I'm going to let request equal NSURL request. And the URL is going to be is the one I passed, URL. NSURL connection. I'm going to do a send asynchronous request. And the request is going to be request. Queue is going to be the main queue, and it's a good idea to always use the main queue when you're updating your interface. So ns operation queue dot main queue, and the completion handler is what gets run after the information comes back. So once this data comes back, the completion handler or the closure gets run. So I'm going to go ahead and write my own. So I'm going to put that ends there, and then I'm going to put put response. So I'm getting a response back. Data error in. And I'm going to say if let image data, which is the data I get back as part of this completion handler, equals data. I'm going to say self.imageView.image equals UI image. Can't spell it. Data image data. Okay, so let's see what this says. Get rid of some spacing here. Whoa. So I've got this function that I've created. I've created a request saying get information from the URL, and the URL is what gets passed back when I make that JSON request. Essentially, that URL is this URL right here. I'm going to send an asynchronous request to get whatever information is there. When I get information back, it's giving me a response. It's giving me some data, right, which hopefully is the image, and maybe an error if something goes wrong. So when the data comes back, I'm doing an optional binding. I'm saying if there is some data that comes back, create a new UI image object using the image that's returned from that URL. Okay? So that's what this function is doing. So you can see it's very similar to the processing when I got the song title and artist title. So that's a lot of stuff going on, but let's go ahead and run this and see if we actually get image values back. There we go. So I've got my top song, top album, the picture comes back, the top app, and the top movie. So it looks like everything is working. There was a lot going on in this lesson, but hopefully you have an understanding of how tab bar controllers work and how to store information as JSON data or XML data and how to retrieve that and add it to your app. So the next project we'll be looking at table view controllers and how you can make your app more flexible using those.